stared at the marriage contract on her desk and tried to feel something other than frustration. The document was simple enough. She would marry a man she had never met, move to a frontier colony she had never visited, and spend the next 3 years building political connections that Earth desperately needed. It was her duty. It was necessary. It was also the last thing she wanted to do. She was 28 years old and had spent the last 6 years climbing the ranks of Earth's colonial defense force. Her record was spotless. She had decoded alien communications that prevented 2 separate attacks on human settlements. She had negotiated trade agreements with 3 different species. Everyone told her she had a bright future ahead of her. Now that future included a husband she did not choose and a life on New Helena, a colony so far from Earth that supply ships only came twice a year. Commander Helen Price walked into his office without knocking. She never knocked. Helen was 50 years old with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been his mentor for 3 years and trusted her more than anyone else in the defense force. "You look like someone sentenced you to death," Helen said. She sat down in the chair across from his desk without waiting for an invitation. "I feel like it," said. She pushed the contract across the desk. "This is really happening." "It's really happening. Earth Command approved it this morning. You leave for New Helena in 2 weeks." Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Tell me again why this matters." Helen leaned forward. New Helena controls the shipping lanes through the outer rim. Every supply ship heading to our colonies in the Perseus Arm has to pass through their system. Right now they're friendly to Earth, but the Empire has been making offers. Big offers. If New Helena switches sides, we lose access to 15 colonies and half our mining operations. So we're buying their loyalty with a wedding. We're strengthening family ties. Daniel Carter's family founded New Helena 40 years ago. They own most of the infrastructure and have influence over the colonial government. Marrying into that family gives Earth a permanent connection. It's politics. You know how this works. Did know. She had studied galactic politics since she was 18 years old. Marriage alliances were common among the alien species. Humans were just learning to play the same game. That did not make it easier. "What do you know about him?" asked Daniel Carter. "What kind of man agrees to marry a stranger for politics?" Helen pulled out a data tablet and scrolled through files. "He's 32, born on New Helena, studied engineering at the colony's Technical Institute. He works in their Defensive Systems Division. Reports say he's quiet and keeps to himself. His family pushed for the arrangement more than he did." "So he's a quiet engineer who does what his family tells him. That's wonderful." "You could do worse. At least he's educated. And his family is influential. That's what matters here." Picked up the contract again. 3 years minimum. After that, I can request a transfer back to Earth. After that, you'll probably want to stay. New Helena is growing fast. There are opportunities there. I don't want opportunities on a frontier colony. I want to work at Earth Command headquarters. I want to help shape humanity's future in the Federation. I can't do that from the edge of nowhere. Helen's expression went soft. It was rare and it made pay attention. "You're one of the officers I've ever trained, but you need to understand something. The future of humanity isn't just being decided at headquarters. It's being decided in places like New Helena. The colonies are where we're proving ourselves to the galaxy. They're where we show that humans can survive and build and protect what's ours. This assignment matters more than you think." Wanted to argue, but she knew Helen was right. She signed the contract with quick, sharp movements. The wedding took place 2 weeks later in a small chapel on New Helena. Had arrived on the colony 3 days before and spent that time meeting Daniel's family and touring the settlement. New Helena was bigger than she expected. 30,000 people lived in the main settlement with another 20,000 scattered across smaller outposts. The buildings were a mix of prefabricated structures from Earth and locally built additions. Everything looked functional but plain. Daniel's family welcomed her with careful politeness. His mother, Carter, was a sharp-eyed woman who asked probing questions about career and ambitions. His father, George Carter, was quieter but watched closely during every conversation. They were measuring her, deciding if she was good enough for their son, wanted to laugh at the irony. She was the one making the sacrifice here. She did not meet Daniel until the day before the wedding. He came to the house where she was staying and knocked on the door like he was afraid to disturb her, opened it, and got her first look at the man she would marry. He was tall but not imposing. He had brown hair that was a little too long and brown eyes that did not quite meet hers. He wore simple work clothes that had oil stains on the sleeves. His hands were rough with calluses, and she noticed thin scars across his knuckles. He looked like exactly what Helen had described. A quiet engineer who worked with machines and kept to himself. "I'm Daniel," he said. His voice was soft and careful. "I thought we should meet before tomorrow." "I'm come in." They sat in the living room and the silence stretched between them, waited for him to say something. When he did not, she took control of the conversation. "Your family seems nice," she said. It was a lie but a polite one. "They're protective. They worry about the colony's future." "And you, do you worry about the future?" Daniel looked at her for the first time and she saw something in his eyes that surprised her. It was not nervousness or uncertainty. It was sadness mixed with resignation. "I worry about a lot of things," he said, "but I learned a long time ago that worrying doesn't change anything. You just do what needs to be done." "Is that what this is? Something that needs to be done?" "For the colony, yes. Earth support matters. My family knows that, I know that." "What about what you want?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I wanted peace and quiet. I got that here. Everything else is just details." It was not the answer expected. She had prepared herself for a man who was ambitious or manipulative or weak. Daniel seemed like none of those things. He just seemed tired. The wedding was small and formal. 50 people attended, mostly colonial officials and Daniel's extended family. Earth Command sent a representative who gave a short speech about cooperation and mutual benefit. Wore a simple white dress. Daniel wore a suit that looked uncomfortable on him. They said their vows in front of a colonial magistrate. The words felt hollow in his mouth, but she spoke them clearly. Daniel did the same. When it was over, they signed the legal documents and became husband and wife. There was no kiss, just a handshake and polite applause from the guests. The reception was brief. People made toasts and speeches about the future, smiled and thanked everyone and felt like she was playing a role in someone else's life. Daniel stood beside her and said little. When people congratulated him, he nodded and thanked them quietly. When it was finally over, they went to the house that would be their home. It was a medium-sized structure on the edge of the main settlement. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living area, and a small workshop in the back. Daniel had lived there alone for 5 years. "I cleared out the 2nd bedroom for you," Daniel said. "You can set it up however you want. I'll stay out of your way." Looked at him. "We're married. We live in the same house. You don't have to stay out of my way." "I just meant I won't bother you. You have your work and I have mine. We can just coexist." It was practical. It was sensible. It also made feel lonelier than she had felt in years. This was her life now. A political marriage to a quiet man who wanted to coexist rather than connect. 3 years minimum before she could request a transfer. She unpacked her things in silence and tried not to think about everything she had given up. 3 months passed and felt like she was living with a ghost. Daniel left for work before she woke up and came home after dark. They ate dinner together twice a week out of obligation. Their conversations were polite and empty. He asked about her day. She gave short answers. She asked about his work. He changed the subject. Threw herself into her job at New Helena's intelligence division. It was small compared to what she had on Earth, just 5 officers and a collection of outdated monitoring equipment. They tracked ship movements through the system and analyzed communications from passing vessels. It was boring work, but it kept her busy. She made friends with Lieutenant Karen, a communications specialist who had been on New Helena for 2 years. Karen was 30 years old with red hair and a sharp sense of humor. She was one of the few people on the colony who did not treat differently because of who she had married. "How's married life?" Karen asked one afternoon while they reviewed shipping logs. "It exists," said. "That's about all I can say." "Daniel's still avoiding you." "He's not avoiding me. We just don't have anything to talk about. He works on his engineering projects. I work here. We share a house, that's it." Karen leaned back in her chair. "You know what people say about him, right?" Looked up from her screen. "What do people say?" "That he's brilliant. That the defensive systems he designed are better than anything Earth has sent us. That before he came to New Helena, he did something important but nobody talks about what it was. He's just an engineer." "Maybe, but I've seen the schematics for our defensive grid. They're way beyond normal colony standards. Someone with serious military experience designed those systems." Thought about the scars on Daniel's hands, the way his eyes had looked sad and resigned when they first met, the workshop in the back of their house that he kept locked. "I'll ask him about it," said. "Good luck. Everyone who's tried got nowhere." That night waited for Daniel to come home. It was late, almost midnight, when he finally walked through the door. He looked exhausted. There were grease stains on his shirt and his hands were dirty. "We need to talk," said. Daniel stopped in the doorway. "Is something wrong?" "I want to know about your work. Real details, not the vague answers you usually give me." "I work on defensive systems. You know that." "I know that's what you tell people. I want to know why our defensive grid is so advanced. I want to know where you learned to design military-grade weapons. I want to know what you did before you came to New Helena." Daniel's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. "It's not important. That was a long time ago. We're married. We live together. Don't I deserve to know who you are?" "You know who I am. I'm an engineer who wants to be left alone. That's all there is." He walked past her toward his room and closed the door, stood in the living room and felt anger burning in her chest. She had given up her career on Earth for this marriage. The least he could do was be honest with her. The next morning went to the Colonial Records office. She used her security clearance to access Daniel's file. Most of it was normal: education records, employment history, family information. But there was a 10-year gap before he arrived on New Helena. No records at all. Just a note that his previous work was classified by Earth Command. She tried to access the classified files, but her clearance was not high enough. She sent a request to Earth Command for more information. The response came back 3 days later. Request: no explanation given. Karen found her staring at the denial notice. "What are you working on?" "Trying to figure out my husband. It's harder than decoding alien languages." "Maybe he doesn't want to be figured out. Some people have pasts they'd rather forget." "I'm not trying to hurt him. I just want to understand." "Then ask him again. But this time maybe tell him why it matters to you." Thought about that conversation for days. She was about to try again when everything changed. Lieutenant burst into his office on a Tuesday morning. "We have a problem, a big one." Looked up from her reports. "What kind of problem?" "Raiders. We picked up their communications 2 hours ago. They're talking about New Helena. Specifically, they're talking about how isolated we are and how valuable our resource stockpiles are." Felt her blood go cold. They were one of the most dangerous species in the sector. They were not part of the Galactic Federation. They raided colonies, took what they wanted, and killed anyone who resisted. Earth had lost 3 settlements to attacks in the last 5 years. "How many ships?" "At least 15, maybe more. They're organizing a raid fleet." "When?" "Best guess, 2 weeks, maybe less." immediately called for an emergency meeting with the colonial governor and military command. They gathered in the command center an hour later. Governor Peter was a heavy-set man in his 60s who had run New Helena for 12 years. He listened to Karen's report with a grim expression. 15 ships, he said. We can't fight that, we need to evacuate. Evacuate where? Asked. The nearest Earth facility is 3 weeks away, we'd never make it. We could scatter, take the civilian ships and head in different directions. They would hunt us down, they have faster ships and better sensors. Then what do you suggest? Looked at the others in the room. We defend the colony. The silence was heavy. Finally, Colonel Barry Grant spoke. He was the head of New Helena's militia, a former Earth military officer who had retired to the colony. With what? We have defensive platforms and some militia fighters. That's not enough against a raiding fleet. Our defensive systems are better than you think, said. I've reviewed the schematics. If we use them right, we might have a chance. Might isn't good enough. It's all we have. The governor looked at everyone. I won't abandon this colony without a fight. We built this place from nothing. If we run, then we'll just hit another human settlement. Someone has to make a stand. We need to bring in Daniel Carter, said. Everyone looked at her. He designed our defensive systems. He knows them better than anyone. If we're going to fight, we need him in command. Colonel Grant shook his head. Carter is an engineer, not a soldier. Then find me someone who knows our defenses better than he does. No one answered. That night went home early and waited for Daniel. When he arrived, she did not give him time to retreat to his room. We need to talk right now. Daniel looked at her tired expression and his face showed concern. What happened? Raiders are coming, 15 ships, maybe more. They're going to attack New Helena in less than 2 weeks. Daniel went very still. When did you find out? This morning. We had a meeting with the governor. He wants to evacuate, but there's nowhere safe to go. We decided to defend the colony. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's our only option. Stepped closer to him. The governor wants you to take command of the defensive systems. You designed them. You know how they work. We need you. I'm not a soldier. Don't lie to me. Not now. I've seen the classified gaps in your records. I've reviewed your defensive designs. They're military grade, built by someone who understands combat. Whatever you did before you came here, you have experience we need. Daniel turned away from her. His shoulders were tight with tension. I left that life behind. I came here to get away from war. War came to us. You can't hide from it now. You don't understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. Tell me the truth. Who are you really? Daniel was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, harder. I was special operations, part of a unit that didn't officially exist. We handled problems that Earth couldn't acknowledge. For 10 years, that was my life. Then a mission went wrong and people died because of choices I made. I left because I was tired of making those choices. I came here to build things instead of destroy them. Felt like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. The colony needs you. Those 30,000 people out there need someone who knows how to fight. I know you don't want this, but please. Daniel looked at her and she saw the same sadness she had seen on their wedding day. If I do this, I become that person again, the one I was trying to leave behind. You don't have to become anything. You just have to use what you know to protect people. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? I don't know, but I know those people deserve a chance. You can give them that. Daniel closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, something had changed. The quiet, passive engineer was gone. What remained was someone harder and more focused. I'll need full access to all defensive systems, complete authority over tactics and deployment. The militia follows my orders without question. Done. And when this is over, you're going to wish you'd never asked me to do this. Why? Because you're going to see who I really am, and you won't like it. Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of New Helena's system exactly 12 days after the first warning. Watched the sensors from the command center as 15 warships appeared on the screens. Each ship was massive, designed for intimidation as much as combat. They built their vessels to look like predators, all sharp angles and weapon arrays. Daniel stood at the center of the command room and his whole presence had changed. He wore a simple tactical uniform with no rank insignia. His voice was calm and clear when he gave orders. The militia members around him responded instantly, moving with purpose. Realized they had known all along. They had always understood who Daniel really was. All defensive platforms to stand by, Daniel said. Power up the grid but keep weapon systems offline. I want them to think we're just a normal colony. They outnumber us badly, Colonel Grant said from his station. Even with our defenses, this is going to be rough. They outnumber us because they expect an easy target. We're going to prove them wrong. Had been assigned to coordinate civilian evacuations. Daniel had been firm about it. Her job was to get every non-essential person into the underground shelters before the fighting started. She wanted to argue that she should be in the command center, helping with tactics. But Daniel's expression when he gave the order told her this was not negotiable. She worked with Karen and a team of militia members to move families into the shelter network. New Helena had built extensive tunnels beneath the main settlement, originally for mining but expanded for emergencies. They could hold everyone if needed. A woman with 2 children stopped as they entered one shelter. Is it true? Are they really coming? Yes, said, there was no point lying. Are we going to die? Looked at the woman's terrified face and the children clinging to her. No, we have good defenses and smart people running them. You're going to be safe down here. How can you be sure? Because my husband is up there making sure of it. She said it without thinking and realized she meant it. Whatever Daniel had been before, whatever he had done, right now he was standing between the and 30,000 civilians. That was all that mattered. The fleet moved slowly into the system. They were in no hurry. Raiders never were when they thought they had an easy target. It took them 6 hours to reach orbital range of New Helena. Was back in the command center by then. All civilians were secure. The militia was at their stations. Daniel stood at the tactical display with his arms crossed, watching the fleet's approach. They're hailing us, the communications officer said. Put them through. The screen showed a commander. He was typical of his species, 7 feet tall with scales like armor and eyes that reminded of a lizard. He wore combat gear covered in trophies from previous raids. Human colony, the said in rough but understandable English. I am commander. You will surrender all resources and 30% of your population for labor, refuse, and we will take everything by force. You have 1 hour. Daniel's expression did not change. No. Leaned forward. You do not understand. We are 15 ships. You are 1 small colony. Resistance is pointless. Then you should have brought more ships. The screen went dark, stared at Daniel. You just declared war on 15 warships. They declared war when they came here. I just made it official. Are you insane? Probably, but I'm also right. The respect's strength. If we had begged or tried to negotiate, they would have taken everything and killed us anyway. Now they know we'll fight. That changes things. How? They'll be more careful. Careful enemies make mistakes. The first attack came 30 minutes later. Fighter craft launched from the warships and streaked toward the colony. There were at least 50 of them, small and fast. They came in shooting, expecting to overwhelm any defenses quickly. Daniel waited until they were committed to their attack run. Then he activated the defensive grid. Weapons platforms that had looked like normal colony structures suddenly powered up. Hidden turrets emerged from buildings and hillsides. The entire settlement became a fortress in seconds. Coordinated fire cut through the fighter formation like a blade. 20 fighters were destroyed in the first 30 seconds. The survivors broke formation and scattered, trying to escape the kill zone. The defensive grid tracked them with ruthless efficiency. Only 12 fighters made it back to the fleet. The command center was silent. Everyone stared at the tactical display showing the debris field where the fighters had been. "How did you do that?" Colonel Grant asked. "Planning," Daniel said. "I spent 5 years building this system. Every weapon placement is calculated for maximum overlapping fields of fire. Every sensor is networked to provide complete coverage. I designed this colony to survive exactly this kind of attack." "You built this place to be a fortress." "I built it to protect people. If that means making it a fortress, then yes." The fleet regrouped. Could see them on the sensors, moving into a formation. Commander would be furious. Raiders did not expect real resistance from human colonies. "They're going to commit their capital ships now," Daniel said. "The fighters were just a probe. Now comes the real fight." 3 heavy cruisers moved forward. They were enormous vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. They spread out to attack from different angles, trying to divide the colony's defensive fire. Daniel's hands moved across the tactical display, repositioning defensive platforms and adjusting fire solutions. "All batteries, target the lead cruiser. Fire on my mark." "Asked we have." "Hidden in the asteroid field surrounding the system. I built them 3 years ago." The asteroids that orbited New Helena's star suddenly came alive with weapons fire. Massive projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into the lead cruiser. The ship's shields held for the first few impacts, then failed. The following shots tore through armor plating like paper. The cruiser began venting atmosphere and debris. It tried to turn away, but more shots kept coming. Finally, something critical exploded, and the entire ship broke apart in a flash of light. The other 2 cruisers immediately retreated. The fleet pulled back to a safer distance, regrouping again. "1 down," Daniel said calmly. 14 to go. Moved to stand next to him. "Where did you learn to do this, to command like this?" 10 years of doing nothing but fight. You learn patterns. You learn how enemies think. They are predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and intimidation. When that doesn't work, they get angry and make mistakes." "You sound like you've fought them before." "Twice, both times in operations that never officially happened." The fleet launched another attack, this time with all remaining fighters and 2 more cruisers. It was a full assault, everything they had except their flagship. Daniel coordinated the defense with cold precision, directing fire to where it would do the most damage. The space around New Helena became a battle zone. Fighters exploded. Defensive platforms were destroyed. 1 cruiser managed to get close enough for orbital bombardment, raining fire down on the colony's outer sections. Buildings collapsed. People died despite the shelters. Daniel ordered a counterattack. Hidden missile batteries launched from concealed silos. The missiles used smart tracking systems that Daniel had designed. They wove through defensive fire and slammed into the bombarding cruiser's engines. The ship lost power and began drifting. The second cruiser tried to provide cover, but the defensive grid focused all fire on it. After 10 minutes of sustained bombardment, it broke off and retreated, heavily damaged. "We can't keep this up forever," Colonel Grant said. "We're losing platforms. Eventually they'll overwhelm us through sheer numbers." "They're losing ships," Daniel replied. "And morale, raiders don't like long fights. They want quick victories. Every minute we hold costs them." An alarm sounded. "Breach in Sector 7, the tactical officer reported. "Assault team got through. They're heading for the main generator." Daniel grabbed a rifle from the weapon rack. "I'm going." "You're in command," Grant protested. "You can't leave your post." If they take out the generator, nothing else matters. I'm the only one who knows the systems well enough to stop them quickly. Grabbed her own weapon. I'm coming with you. Daniel looked at her. This isn't your job. My job is protecting this colony. Right now, that means going with you. For a moment, she thought he would argue. Then he nodded once. Stay behind me and do exactly what I say. They ran through the colony's corridors toward Sector 7. Could hear weapons fire echoing through the tunnels. The assault team had cut through 2 militia checkpoints already. Daniel moved through the corridors like he had memorized every turn. He probably had. They reached the generator facility and found bodies. 3 militia members dead, killed by weapons that burned rather than cut. 7 in powered armor, Daniel said quietly, reading the tactical display on the wall. They're moving fast. We need to get ahead of them. How? There's a maintenance shaft that leads to the generator room. If we move now, we can cut them off. They ran through the maintenance tunnels. His heart was pounding. She had trained for combat but had never actually fought anyone before. The closest she had come was training exercises with weapons that did not kill. They emerged in the generator room ahead of the. Daniel positioned them behind a control station that provided cover. When they come through that door, aim for the joints in their armor, the neck seal and the knees. Those are the weak points. How do you know that? Because I've killed before. The door exploded inward and the assault team charged through. They were massive in their powered armor, moving with practiced efficiency. Daniel opened fire immediately. His shots were precise, each one hitting exactly where he said the weak points were. A warrior's neck seal shattered and he dropped. Another took a shot to the knee joint and fell forward. Fired at a third, her hands shaking but her aim steady. She hit the helmet but the armor held. Daniel moved from cover, firing as he advanced. He was not running blindly. Every movement was calculated. He used the generator equipment for cover, forcing the to split up to chase him. Watched in shock as her quiet, passive husband became something else entirely. He moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently, like combat was as natural to him as breathing. One got close to Daniel with a blade weapon. Daniel dropped his rifle and caught this arm, using the warrior's own momentum to throw him into another attacker. 2 went down in a tangle of powered armor. Provided covering fire, forcing another to take cover. Daniel retrieved his rifle and finished off the 2 tangled warriors with shots to their exposed neck seals. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, 7 lay dead or dying in the generator room. Daniel checked each one to make sure they were no longer a threat. Stood there with her rifle still raised, breathing hard, trying to process what she had just seen. Daniel looked at her. His face was spattered with blood. You did good. Now we need to get back to command. The battle isn't over. They ran back through the corridors to the command center. His mind was racing with images of the fight, the way Daniel had moved, the precision of his attacks, the cold efficiency with which he had killed 7 trained warriors. This was not luck. This was years of experience and training that went far beyond anything a normal engineer would have. When they entered the command center, everyone stared at them. Daniel's uniform was covered in blood. Knew she probably looked just as bad. Colonel Grant stood up from his station. The generator, he asked. Secure, Daniel said. The assault team is eliminated. All of them. All of them. Grant looked at Daniel like he was seeing him for the first time. The entire command center had gone quiet. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the whole room was applauding. Daniel ignored it and went straight to the tactical display. Status report. The tactical officer pulled up the current situation. Fleet has pulled back to medium range. They've lost 4 ships total, 2 destroyed, 2 damaged to fight. We've lost 30% of our defensive platforms and have fires in sectors 3, 7, and 12. Casualties. 43 dead, 120 wounded. Daniel's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Emergency crews to the fire zones, medical teams to the wounded. How many platforms do we have left? 65% operational. And the batteries? Still fully functional. They're our biggest advantage. Daniel studied the tactical display, moved closer to look over his shoulder. The fleet had regrouped, but they were staying at a cautious distance now. They had expected an easy raid and instead had lost ships and warriors. They're going to try one more time, Daniel said. Raiders don't like to retreat without taking something. Commander will stake everything on a final assault. How do you know? Grant asked. Because that's what I would do in his position. He's already lost face with his fleet. If he retreats now with nothing to show for it, his own warriors might kill him. He has to commit everything to one last attack. Can we survive that? If we're smart and lucky. Karen's voice came through the communications system. Daniel, we're picking up movement from the flagship. It's moving forward with the remaining 8 operational ships. Here we go, Daniel said quietly. He turned to address the entire command center. This is their final push. They're going to throw everything at us. Our job is to break their formation and make them pay for every meter they advance. Focus fire on their flagship. If we can take out the rest, we'll lose their nerve. The fleet advanced in a tight formation with the flagship in the center. It was a massive vessel, twice the size of the heavy cruisers. It bristled with weapons and had shields powerful enough to withstand sustained fire. Daniel waited until they were fully committed to their attack. Then he made a decision that shocked everyone. Pull back defensive fire from sectors 1 through 4. Redirect all power to sectors 5 and 6. That will leave a huge gap in our defenses, Grant protested. That's the point. I want them to see the weakness. I want them to commit to attacking through that gap. You're using us as bait. I'm using tactics, trust me. Grant looked unhappy, but he gave the orders. The defensive grid reconfigured, creating an obvious weak point in the colony's defenses. Watched the tactical display and saw the fleet immediately adjust course to exploit the gap. They're taking the bait, she said. Of course they are. Is angry, and angry people make mistakes. The ships poured through the gap, weapons firing. They focused on the weakened sectors, trying to overwhelm the reduced defenses. The colony took heavy damage. More platforms were destroyed. Fires spread through several sections. Daniel waited. His hands were clenched on the edge of the tactical display, but his voice remained steady. Hold, not yet. The fleet pushed deeper, their ships forming a tight cluster as they exploited what they thought was a tactical error. Now, Daniel said, all batteries fire everything. The asteroid field lit up with weapons fire. Every battery Daniel had built over 5 years fired at once. The projectiles came from multiple angles, creating a crossfire that the fleet could not avoid. The impacts were devastating. Shields failed under the sustained bombardment. Armor plating cracked and shattered. Explosions rippled through the clustered ships as projectiles tore through hulls. 3 more cruisers were crippled in the first salvo. A 4th exploded completely when a shot penetrated its reactor. The flagship took multiple hits, but its heavy shields held. Redirect all remaining fire to the flagship, Daniel ordered. Pour everything we have into it. Every defensive platform still operational focused on the massive ship. Missiles, energy weapons, and fire converged on its vessel. The shields flickered and failed. Armor began to burn away under the concentrated assault. Inside, the flagship must have realized his mistake. He had fallen for the trap and lost half his remaining fleet in minutes. The ship began to turn, trying to retreat. Don't let them escape, Daniel said. If survives, he'll come back with reinforcements. The batteries adjusted their aim and fired again. The shots were perfectly calculated. One projectile punched through the flagship's engine section. Another hit the command deck. The massive ship shuddered and began to break apart. Watched as the flagship disintegrated into debris. Commander and his entire crew died in the explosion. The remaining ships immediately broke formation and fled. They jumped to hyperspace without even trying to recover survivors. The command center erupted in cheers. Militia members hugged each other. Some were crying with relief. They had won against impossible odds. Daniel did not celebrate. He immediately started issuing orders. Damage control teams to all affected sectors. Medical personnel prioritize critical cases. I want a full casualty count and damage assessment in 1 hour. Engineering teams start repairs on the defensive platforms. He worked for 3 more hours, coordinating the colony's recovery efforts. He checked on every wounded person personally. He spoke with the families of those who had died, offering quiet condolences. By the time the immediate crisis was handled, it was almost dawn. Found him in the medical center. He was sitting on an examination table while a doctor treated the injuries he had gotten during the assault team fight. There was a deep cut on his arm and bruising across his ribs. He had not mentioned either during the battle. "You should have told someone you were hurt," said. "People were dying. A few cuts didn't matter." The doctor finished bandaging Daniel's arm and left them alone, sat down next to him on the table. "I need to ask you something," she said. "I know what you're going to ask. Who are you really? And don't tell me you're just an engineer. I saw you fight. I saw you command. That doesn't come from designing defensive systems." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I was part of a special operations unit called Shadow 7. We did jobs that Earth Command couldn't officially acknowledge, rescuing hostages from alien raiders, sabotaging enemy facilities, assassinating targets that threatened human interests. For 10 years, that was my entire life." "What happened? Why did you leave?" "There was a mission on a border world. We were supposed to extract a group of scientists before raiders could capture them. The intelligence was wrong. It was a trap. My team was pinned down and the scientists were caught in the crossfire. I had to make a choice. Save my team or save the civilians." "What did you choose?" "I saved my team. 5 soldiers survived because of that decision. 12 scientists died. I did the math and made the tactical choice. It was the right decision from a military standpoint, but those 12 people had families. They had futures. I took that away because I prioritized trained soldiers over civilians." Saw the pain in his eyes. "You were in an impossible situation." "That doesn't change what happened. After that mission, I realized I was becoming someone I didn't want to be. Someone who could calculate human lives like numbers on a tactical display. So I left. I came to New Helena because I wanted to build things instead of destroy them. I wanted to protect people without having to kill." "But you killed today. You fought and commanded and did all the things you left behind." "Because I had no choice. They would have taken this colony and killed everyone here. But that doesn't mean I'm proud of it. It just means I did what was necessary." Thought about everything she had witnessed. The brilliant tactics, the ruthless efficiency, the cold precision with which Daniel had eliminated threats. She had married a quiet engineer and discovered a warrior. "I was wrong about you," she said. "When we got married, I thought you were passive and weak. I thought I was sacrificing my career for a man who had given up on life. I was completely wrong." "You weren't wrong. I am passive. I do want quiet, but wanting something and being able to achieve it are different things. The universe doesn't care what we want." "You saved 30,000 people today." "I killed raiders and watched 43 colonists die. That's not heroism. That's just math." "You're being too hard on yourself." Daniel looked at her directly. "Am I? You saw me in that generator room. You saw what I'm capable of. Does that look like someone who deserves to be called a hero?" Thought about her answer carefully. "It looks like someone who has seen too much war but still stands up when people need protecting. Maybe that is what a hero looks like." Daniel did not respond. He just stood up slowly, wincing from his injuries, and walked out of the medical center, watched him go, and realized something important. She had married Daniel out of obligation and duty, but somewhere between the beginning of the battle and now that had changed. She had seen who he really was, not just the surface he showed the world. And instead of being horrified, she was in awe. 3 days after the battle, New Helena looked like a wounded animal trying to heal. Construction crews worked around the clock repairing damaged buildings. Medical teams treated the wounded in overcrowded facilities. Families buried their dead and tried to process what had happened. Spent most of those 3 days coordinating relief efforts and helping with recovery operations. She also spent time sitting beside Daniel's hospital bed. The doctors had insisted he stay for observation after discovering he had 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and internal bruising he had not mentioned to anyone. Daniel hated being in the hospital. He kept trying to leave to help with repairs. The medical staff had to physically restrain him twice. Finally, volunteered to stay with him and make sure he rested. "You don't have to babysit me," Daniel said from his bed. He looked exhausted and frustrated. "Someone has to. You won't rest otherwise. There's work to be done. The defensive grid needs repairs. The batteries need maintenance. We lost 30% of our platforms, and someone needs to redesign the coverage zones. And that someone will be you after you heal. Right now you need to rest." Daniel closed his eyes. "I'm not good at resting. I've noticed." They sat in silence for a while. Other patients in the medical center slept or talked quietly with their families. Through the window, could see smoke still rising from damaged sections of the colony. "How many funerals have there been?" Daniel asked. 23 so far. The rest are scheduled over the next few days. 43 people dead because I couldn't protect them better. 43 people dead because raiders attacked us. You saved everyone else. 30,000 people are alive because of you. Numbers don't make it hurt less." Understood that. She had attended 3 funerals already, and each one had been devastating. People she had worked with, people she had eaten dinner with in the colony's cafeteria. Now they were gone. "I spoke with Governor yesterday," said. "He wants to give you a medal and make you the official head of colonial defense." "I don't want a medal." "I told him you would say that. He said he's giving it to you anyway." Daniel opened his eyes and looked at her. "How are you doing? You fought too. You killed warriors in that generator room." "I'm processing it. Every time I close my eyes, I see that fight. I keep thinking about how close we came to losing." "That's normal. The first time you kill someone, it changes you. The fact that it bothers you means you're still human." "Does it still bother you?" "Every single time." That answer surprised. She had assumed after 10 years in special operations, killing would become routine for Daniel, but his expression showed genuine pain. News of New Helena's defense spread through the Galactic Federation faster than anyone expected. Within a week, every species in the sector knew that a small human colony had fought off a full raiding fleet. The story grew with each retelling. Some versions claimed New Helena had destroyed all 15 ships. Others said the colony had done it without taking any casualties. The truth was impressive enough. One frontier colony had held against overwhelming odds through superior tactics and determination. Alien species began reassessing their assumptions about human military capabilities. Earth Command sent a priority communication to New Helena requesting a full report. They also sent a personal message to Daniel offering him a return to active service with the rank of colonel and command of his own special operations unit. Was there when Daniel read the message. He deleted it without responding. "You're not even going to consider it?" she asked. "No. They're offering you everything. Recognition, rank, the chance to lead again." "I don't want to lead soldiers into combat. I want to build defensive systems that prevent combat from happening. There's a difference. But you're so good at it. You saved this colony through your tactics and leadership. Daniel looked at her with tired eyes. Being good at something doesn't mean you should do it. I'm good at killing people efficiently. That doesn't mean I should spend my life doing it. Thought about that conversation for days. She received her own message from Earth Command. They offered her a promotion to captain and a position at headquarters coordinating colonial defense strategies. It was everything she had wanted before the arranged marriage. She sat in her office and stared at the message for hours. Corinne found her there late one night. "You look like someone trying to make an impossible decision," Corinne said. "Earth Command wants me back. Full promotion, headquarters position, everything I worked for. But leaving means abandoning New Helena. It means leaving Daniel, and I'm not sure I want to do either of those things anymore." Corinne sat down across from her. 3 months ago, you would have jumped at this offer. 3 months ago, I didn't understand what mattered. I thought it was all about rank and recognition and climbing the career ladder. Then I watched this colony almost die. I watched Daniel fight to save people he barely knew. I realized there's more to life than ambition. "So you're turning it down?" "I think so, but I'm not sure Daniel wants me to stay. We started as a political arrangement. Maybe that's all we'll ever be." "Have you talked to him about it?" "We barely talk at all. He works, I work. We share a house, that's it." "Maybe it's time to change that." Went home that night determined to have a real conversation with Daniel. But he was not there. She found him in his workshop, which he had finally unlocked after the battle. Inside was a space that looked like a combination of engineering lab and weapons facility. Daniel was working on something at his main table, welding components together. He looked up when entered. "I thought this door was always locked," said. "It was. I figured after everything that happened, there's no point hiding anymore." Looked around the workshop. There were weapons prototypes, defensive system designs, tactical planning documents. This was where Daniel had spent his nights for 5 years, building the systems that saved the colony. "This is incredible," she said. "It's functional. I design what's needed, build what I can, and hope it works when the time comes." "It worked. You saved everyone." Daniel set down his welding tool. "Not everyone. 43 people died." "You can't save everyone. No one can." "Doesn't make it easier." Moved closer to him. "I got a message from Earth Command. They want me back. Headquarters position, promotion to captain, everything I wanted." Daniel's expression did not change. "You should take it. That's a good opportunity." "I'm thinking about turning it down." Now Daniel looked at her. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't want to leave. Not the colony and not you. We barely know each other." "Then maybe it's time we change that. We've been married for 3 months and we've been strangers the whole time. I'm tired of it. I want to actually know my husband." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Why? You saw what I am during that battle. You saw me kill people without hesitation. Why would you want to know someone like that?" "Because I also saw you coordinate the defense of 30,000 people. I saw you personally check on every wounded person. I saw you cry at the funerals. You're not just a weapon, Daniel. You're someone who cares deeply and tries to protect people even when it costs you. That's worth knowing." "I'm damaged goods. I have nightmares about missions from years ago. I wake up expecting attacks. I can't go to crowded places without checking exit routes. You deserve better than that." "I don't want better, I want you. The real you, not the quiet engineer who hides from everything." Daniel looked at her like he was trying to decide if she meant it. "If you stay, things won't be easy. I'm not good at opening up. I spent 10 years learning to keep everything inside." "Then we'll learn together. I'm not good at this either. I've spent my whole career focused on ambition instead of actually connecting with people. Maybe we're both damaged in our own ways. What if we can't make it work? What if we can? We won't know unless we try. Daniel stood up slowly. He looked uncertain, which was strange to see on someone who had commanded a battle so confidently. I accepted the arranged marriage because I thought I could just coexist with someone, keep them at a distance and avoid getting hurt. But watching you during that battle, seeing you risk yourself to help protect the colony, it changed something. I don't want to just coexist anymore. What do you want? I want to try. Actually try to make this marriage real instead of just a political arrangement. Felt something tight in her chest loosen. Me too. They stood there in the workshop surrounded by weapons and defensive systems, two people who had started as strangers and were trying to become something more. Over the next few weeks, New Helena slowly healed. The damaged sections were repaired. New defensive platforms were built. Families mourned their dead and celebrated the survivors. Life gradually returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal that included the knowledge that they had survived something terrible. Officially turned down the promotion and requested a permanent transfer to New Helena. Earth Command was not happy but approved the request. She took a position coordinating the colony's intelligence operations and defensive planning. She and Daniel started actually talking. It was awkward at first. They had spent 3 months avoiding real conversation, and breaking that pattern was difficult. But slowly, they learned about each other. Daniel told her about his childhood on New Helena, about joining special operations at 22, about the missions that haunted him. Told him about growing up in a military family, about her desperate need to prove herself, about her fear of being ordinary. They started eating dinner together every night. They worked together on improving the colony's defenses. Daniel taught about weapons systems and tactical planning, helped him understand the political implications of defense decisions. 3 frontier colonies requested consultations about upgrading their defensive systems. Daniel was reluctant but convinced him to accept. They traveled together to the colonies, working as a team to assess needs and design solutions. During one trip, while reviewing defensive plans in a small colony's command center, the local governor commented on how well they worked together. "You two make a good team," the governor said. "How long have you been married?" 5 months, said. "Seems longer. You move like people who known each other for years." After the governor left, Daniel smiled slightly. "I think that was a compliment. We've come a long way from avoiding each other in our own house." "We have." They returned to New Helena to find the colony had erected a memorial for those who died during the attack. 43 names were carved into a stone monument in the central plaza. Daniel stood in front of it for a long time. "I come here every morning," he said quietly, "to remind myself why the work matters. These people died because I couldn't protect them well enough. These people died because they chose to defend their home instead of running. You gave them that choice by building defenses that made it possible. It doesn't feel like enough. It never will, but it's what we can do. Build better defenses, protect more people, make sure their sacrifice meant something." Daniel looked at her. "When did you become so wise?" "When I stopped thinking about my career and started thinking about what actually matters. Took me long enough." They stood together in front of the memorial as colonists passed by. Some stopped to pay their respects. Others just nodded to Daniel and in recognition. That night, they sat on the porch of their house and watched the sun set over New Helena. The colony looked peaceful in the fading light. It was hard to believe this place had been a battlefield just weeks before. "Do you regret staying?" Daniel asked. "No, do you regret that I stayed?" "No, I'm glad you did. Even though I'm difficult and ambitious and don't know how to relax. Even though you're also brave and smart and you make me want to be better than I am." Smiled. "You make me want to be less focused on myself and more focused on what matters." Maybe we're good for each other. Maybe we are. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. New Helena orbited a star that gave the sky a slightly orange tint at sunset, had hated it when she first arrived. Now she thought it was beautiful. "I've been thinking about something," Daniel said. "We started this marriage as strangers doing our duty, but somewhere along the way, at least for me, it became something else, something real." "For me too," said. "I'm not good at saying these things. 10 years in special operations doesn't teach you how to talk about feelings, but I care about you. Not because we're married or because it's politically useful. I care about you because of who you are." Felt tears in her eyes. "I care about you too. I married you for obligation and discovered someone worth knowing, someone worth staying for." Daniel reached over and took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it felt important. They sat like that as darkness fell and the colony lights came on around them. "We're going to figure this out," said. "This marriage, this life, we'll figure it out together." "Together," Daniel agreed. "That sounds good." They went inside as the night grew cold. Behind them, New Helena settled into peaceful darkness, defended by systems Daniel had built and protected by people who had learned that strength came in many forms. Sometimes it looked like overwhelming firepower. Sometimes it looked like tactical brilliance. And sometimes it looked like two people who started as strangers and chose to become partners. Had married him for obligation, but she stayed for choice. And in the end, that made all the difference.